chair recognizes that the Lenore County Board of Education has established a quorum and calls the January 16, 2024 special call meeting to order. Chair recognizes Mr. Nick Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let us pray. May the words spoken in this room tonight be beneficial to the students, parents, staff, and administrators in our school system. And may we be led by the guiding principle to always base our decisions on the best interests of our young people. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Mr. Brent Williams to present the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, tonight it's my honor and privilege to present to you for your consideration and hopefully your approval tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Is there a recommendation or motion pertaining to the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda.
Motion by Mr. Smith. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Starkey. We have a motion by Mr. Smith and a second by Dr. Starkey to approve the board agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, chair will call for the vote. All in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries 6-0. The agenda is set for tonight. Normally, we would recognize our elected officials, and since I see Mr. Preston Harris with us here tonight, we'd like to recognize him, welcome him, and thank him for coming.
Glad I could attend.
Okay, so we will now move to the action portion of the agenda. As a result of the resignation of board member Mr. Keith King on December 5th, 2023, the board interviewed two candidates at its January 8th, 2024 regular monthly board meeting. Tonight, the board will vote to fill Mr. King's vacant seat until November 3rd, 2024. The process for voting for Mr. King's replacement was also decided upon at the January 8th, 2024 meeting, regular monthly meeting. The individual selected will be sworn in at February 5th, 2024 regular monthly meeting. Chair now recognizes Mrs. Carolyn Murchison to review the voting process.
Well, we have, the board voted at the last meeting to vote by ballot, so we have ballots that have both applicants' names on them. Each board member will need to select one individual that they're voting for and then sign their ballot, and then resubmit that to be tallied.
Mr. Smith.
And I probably should have said this at the outset for people who might not have been at the last meeting. The two individuals who are under consideration is Mr. John Wiggins and Mr. Steve Roman. Mr. Steve Roman has one vote. It's 2 votes for Steve Roman, 2 votes for Steve Roman, 1 vote for John Wiggins. 2 votes apiece. A 3rd vote for John Wiggins. And a 4th vote for John Wiggins, so that with a vote of 4-2, Mr. John Wiggins will be your next board member. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mrs. Murchison. Okay, so I see Mr. Wiggins is not here tonight, but still we'd like to congratulate Mr. Wiggins and welcome him as a member of the Lenore County Board of Education. We'll thank him for his interest and willingness to serve. We'll thank both candidates and interest and willingness to serve the students of Lenore County Public School System. Well, and Mr. Wiggins, if there's anything we can assist you with, please do not hesitate to reach out to the board. Mr. Williams will be contacting you to set up a time to meet for orientation. Again, congratulations, Mr. Wiggins, and welcome. All right, we will now move to the presentation portion of the agenda.
Chair Hill, just for point of clarification, Mr. Wiggins will also need to be sworn in, as you all know, before he takes his position. Yeah,
All right. At the beginning of our February 5th board meeting.
that'd be fine.
Okay? All right, so we will now move to the presentation portion of the agenda. Recently, the board conducted a board self-evaluation by each board member, as well as a board evaluation by the principals and directors. The results of these self-evaluations, as well as the principals and the directors' evaluations, were compiled and shared with each board member. Tonight, we will review the results of these evaluations and decide what are next steps, if any, in the board self-evaluation process. Chair will now open the board for discussion. And each board member had the results, or actually emailed the results of the survey, and also were included in your board docs for tonight, so.
I had one question. It appears that the overall evaluation is fairly good, and it seems to, from my observation, the board's reflection was a little bit more critical than outsiders' impression. But one thing I did find common in both was area number 7, board and community. And the first, our board acts as representative of each and every student in our school district. There were more, how can I say it? That came up short on both the internal and external evaluation. And I was just wondering what kind of reflection is that saying? Acts as a representative for each and every student in our school district. I didn't mark that as an improvement, but on several, it has 3 that had that identified. Even within the board. I just want to see if there was any examples that can be given to support the area that needs improvement.
So you're looking at 7, and which one did you say?
The first acts as a representative for each and every student.
Yeah, so
in
you're
our-
looking at board and community, and what was the other reference you were given? What number?
The first one in that column, number 7.
But is there another section other than number 7?
No, that was the
Okay.
only one.
Well, in order to be a good representative of, the students in our districts, you've got to visit the schools you represent as well. There should be a conscious effort from every member of this board to make their faces seen, not only at their schools that they're representing in their district, but every school in Lenore County. There are some schools that haven't been visited in quite a long time. So in order to be a good representative, you've got to get to know your students. You've got to get to know your principals, their admin staff, and your schools.
Also, to kind of piggyback on what she said, we get, and I'm pretty sure she does because she's also a female on the board, we get a lot of calls from people within the community,
Mhm.
because some board members that represent respective districts of those concerned parents will not take their calls. So they'll just go up and look on the website and say, okay, well, I'm gonna call Dr. Outlaw or Ms. Cash because we're the females on the board. Now, I'm not saying that's fair or right, but that's kind of what most people do. And I'll try to redirect them to who they need to speak to.
Am I hearing you,
Yes, Mr. Anderson.
am I hearing you say that you've had reports of someone contacting a member of this board and not get a response back?
Absolutely.
Absolutely,
On more than one occasion.
yes.
You know, there is a section in here that talks about transparency, and I can find it. But there is a section in here that talks about transparency that has been wanted for a very long time, and this board is not always transparent. This board does not always have the open door policy that it likes to talk about. And that dates back several years.
Okay. So when you say transparency, in what areas or what type of transparency are you referring to?
Answering the phone, responding to an email,
Okay.
listening to a voicemail and calling a parent back, or listening to a message on your home phone and calling someone back. In the last 3 months, I've had 2 phone calls. One from someone in the district, and I can't speak on who that is simply because it's not appropriate for open session. But also from a parent in another district who stated that she had reached out to another board member but never heard anything back. I mean, there were emails that were sent that were unanswered from 2020 when we were dealing with COVID. You can roll your eyes all you want to, Mr. Anderson, but you know it's true.
I'll say this in closing in defense. An email to the board doesn't necessarily require an individual response, because I don't speak for the board. An email to me, a phone call to me, will get a response.
Okay?
Any other areas of discussion or any other areas that you'd like to discuss? What we can do, if we see that there are some areas of him that we think we need to take some steps to, then we can always, and what we did is when we had the survey, the personnel, committee did the compiling. We can actually have the personnel committee, if you have some recommendations or some suggestions, have the personnel committee to meet and maybe come up with some areas that we think that we always need to make improvements. There's always room for improvement, no matter, what it is or what you're doing. There's always room for improvement. So, we can look at that and see, how we can best try to address maybe some of the areas that people do have concerns for. Now,
There's only one section on this evaluation that does not have anything marked for needs improvement. In every other section, there's something marked for needs improvement. So that tells me that we've got a lot of work to do.
I said I
Well-
wouldn't, but I will. I will keep that in perspective, because where there are areas that needs improvement, the majority are either very good or satisfactory. When you look at the needs to improve, you see one, the highest number that I saw was the 3, and that's the one that I identified.
But they're still there as needs improvement.
But that's one person's opinion.
So when you,
1, 3,
Chairman.
3, 1.
Mr.
It's
Chairman.
not just
Yes,
one
Mr.
person.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
So when you look at a evaluation like this, where of course the board always, everybody needs improvement, there's no doubt about it. But these evaluations are subjective anyway. They are subjective, but there are areas we can improve, I agree. There are areas that always need improvement. And if we can improve on those areas, I'm all for it. But you gotta keep in mind, they are subjective, these type of evaluations.
Okay, any other comments on either one of those particular areas, or are there any other areas that anyone like to comment on? Yes, ma'am. Is that Lost Arthur?
I think as a board, I think there are things obviously we can work on, you know, but I think that what needs to be conveyed is that we're not a board who's afraid to take professional or constructive criticism.
Right.
If, you know, we need to come together as a board to work on things, that's what we need to do. Communication does need to get better amongst us, as well as, you know, probably with our, say, community members and or administration. We would probably need to meet with Mr. Williams and Ms. Herring and Mr. Harvey and ask them, is there anything else that we could support them to do? I feel like we need to be more supportive as a board and not just say, okay, well, because we have a competent administration, they have it. That's not too simple.
Okay, so then what will be the pleasure of the board as far as trying to, steps moving forward? What we'd like to do, if we'd like to have a committee and maybe look at these areas, and then the other board members who would like to make recommendations to the committee, and then we can come back to the full board and do something.
Why don't we have a work session and sit here and hash everything out and make a plan of how we are going to improve, you know, go one by one and see where we stand, if it is predominantly good, if it is a large need for improvement. Instead of having a committee, I mean, this is something that we should all be sitting in and talking about, not just a committee. So a good work session.
Or we can always have a work session and then have the committee come up with some of the ideas or some of the things that we could bring back to the full board to vote on.
If we have a work session and put a plan in place, there's no need for a committee.
Well, that's entirely up to the pleasure of the board, whatever the board would like to do.
I'm open, whatever you want to do.
I make a motion that we have a work session in the near future, we can decide on a date, and go through this evaluation, come up with a plan, and move forward to make this board better.
Mrs. Merchant, do we actually need to have a motion to have a work session? Can it be just general consensus of the board members? I mean, we can call a work session anytime, can we not?
You can call a work session anytime. I don't think there's any prohibition to a motion being made about that topic.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to schedule a work session. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Woods. I've got a motion by Mrs. Cash and a second by Mr. Woods to come up with a date for a work session in the near future. Okay. And for the purpose of discussing the board self-evaluation, correct, Mrs. Murchison? Okay. So everybody would obviously, we could check our calendars and see what date will work out. So all in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay, we will get Mrs. Taylor maybe to send out an email, and we can find some date poll and get some dates that we can try to meet and have a work session. All right. Any further discussion? Okay. Then with no further business to come before this board, is there a recommendation or motion pertaining to adjournment?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Outlaw Starkey. Motion by Mr. Anderson, second by Dr. Outlaw Starkey to adjourn the January 16th, 2024 special call board meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none, chair will call for the vote. All in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Please stay safe.